Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today we have the Dell Venue 11 Pro 7000 series, also known as the T07G. This is a tablet computer that was originally designed with Windows 8 in mind, however it is fully compatible with a Windows 10 upgrade. This was pretty much the successor of some of the other Dell Latitude tablets that we've seen on this channel. And it's quite clear that they took a lessons learned approach and made this actually a pretty formidable unit. So let's get some of the specifications out of the way on this thing. First off, it is a 10.8 inch 1080p touch display and very, very glossy, as we would expect to see from displays of this type and this era. It has a 2 megapixel front-facing camera and an 8 megapixel rear-facing camera. There is a claimed 8-hour battery life on these things with a 30 or 37 watt-hour internal battery, and I believe that which battery you get depends on the CPU configuration that is equipped. Like many Dell products, getting a complete CPU list based on all of the regions that these are available is actually quite tricky. However, I was able to confirm the following CPUs did ship on these devices. So we do have a variety of processors, from an Atom Z3770 to a Pentium 3560Y to a Intel Core M MY71. It also shipped with an i3 and i5 variants. The i3 variant was the 4020Y, and then two i5 variants of a 4210Y and a 4300Y. Other specifications to note is that they either came with 32, 64, 128, or 256 gigabyte SSDs, and they came with either 2 gigabytes of DDR3 1333 megahertz RAM or 4 gigabytes of DDR3 1600 megahertz RAM. I've also seen other configurations on RAM specifications, so again, this is probably not a complete list. And then of course, your integrated GPU will entirely depend on the previous CPU. Many combinations exist there. A few other things to note is that it did have a 128 gigabyte micro SD expansion slot, so you could expand your standard storage. Between the higher capacity SSD and the micro SD card, you could actually get a fair bit of storage on these devices. A few other things to note about these is that they did come with a variety of different accessories. They did have a pen that was available that was battery powered. I don't have that here today, unfortunately. It did come with a tablet dock, which is actually the same one, I believe, as I featured in the Latitude 10 S2 video. You can see that up there. And then it came with two different kinds of keyboards, a thin travel keyboard, and then this mobile keyboard, which has an internal battery of around 28 watt hours. Now, there is one thing that I want to get to before we examine the ports, and that is actually the charger itself. Because even though the charger on the surface might look like micro USB, and it is, there is a quirky little feature that stops a lot of people from charging these things aftermarket, and it has to do with the adapter itself. The output that this adapter puts out is actually 19.5 volts and 1.2 amps. So if you are trying to use a regular wall wart for this, it's not going to deliver enough power to actually get the machine to function. So you do need a specific adapter that has that output that is strong enough to actually power the device. If you don't have this, you're going to be really confused why your tablet isn't turning on. So that's really important to know if you're buying one of these online. Make sure that it does come with the proper adapter, or be prepared to hunt it down. Let's go ahead and take a quick tour of the ports and features of the machine. So the keyboard dock here has no ports along the front side or back. It just has the ejection button. And the nice thing about the keyboard dock is that it will charge through the tablet if it's plugged in, or you could actually charge it directly using the plug right by the pin connector up here. So if you wanted to, you could just take your charging cable and plug it in there if you just wanted to charge that separately. The only downside, of course, is that you wouldn't be able to connect the device while charging just the keyboard, but at the same time, you really wouldn't have any reason to do so. The actual keyboard itself is not terrible, it's not great. You do have some tactile feedback on the keys. Travel is not fantastic. Your trackpad does have a pretty solid click with 2 designated areas to receive that input, but we'll put that off to the side for now. If we take a look at the tablet itself, we do have our dock connector on the bottom, along with the pins on either side to communicate with keyboards and accessories. We do have 2 stability bars for the accessories to go into the tablet just to give it some more rigidity, which is nice to see that it's not just relying on that dock connector. Along the right-hand side, we do have mini HDMI. We do have our micro USB charging. We do have our SD card slot, which is, you require a pin to put in there. This would appear to be the Kensington lock slot. I'm not 100% sure about that. We have one of the speakers, we have the power button, and then we have the charge indicator light. On the other side, we do have a 3.5mm headphone jack. We have our volume rocker, our second speaker, and USB 3.0 super speed. So even though it's not colored blue, I'm just letting you know that that is indeed USB 3.0. And then of course on the front, we have our capacitive touch Microsoft logo button. And as previously mentioned, we have a webcam, 2 megapixels on the front, and then a 8 megapixel on the back. However, no flash, so just keep that in mind. I wanted to point out probably the most impressive feature that I think that this tablet has, and one of the reasons why it probably will have continued longevity into the future. And this so far, I think, is the easiest tablet I have ever seen to service. So if you turn this machine over, at the very bottom you will see like this cutout tab. If you put a fingernail in there, you will literally be able to pop the back off of the entire tablet, and anyone that's ever worked inside of a machine is immediately going to see a lot of things that they like. So we have up in this corner here the Wi-Fi card, and over here we have access to our SSD. And the SSD on this one is a 120 gigabyte drive, but it's readily accessible. And that's probably one of the really cool things about this, is that it's held together by like real screws. The battery can be removed with a catch and pulled out. There you go. You can completely disassemble this entire thing and actually service it. And that's really, really cool. Up here is probably where you would have a modem. Here would be our SIM card slot for that modem if it were installed. We have some shielding in place, but overall, you undo these screws. They actually have the maintenance manual online, and I'll have that in the description below. You can service this, and that to me is pretty cool. So we've got a Dell tablet that is Windows 10 capable. It's serviceable. The CPU combinations are a bit hit and miss depending on what you're using it for. There are definitely more powerful variants over some of the other ones. But the fact that this is just so easy to take apart and swap out parts or service, to me, this still would have a significant amount of life in personal hands, as a media center, or even just a small business that needs a very simple machine to do some mobile productivity work and you're on a budget. Find a company that's surplusing these and I think you're good to go. Speaking of which, we should probably see how it performs, so let's set it up and see what we get. Alright, now that we have it all back together, we're going to go ahead and turn it on. It does have a haptic feedback motor in there. I heard it buzz. And we are in. So it looks pretty good on Windows with regular battery configurations. It is claiming just under 7 hours with just the single battery. If we go ahead and bring our keyboard into play and plug that in, it does detect both batteries instantly, which is good. And we are getting a combined battery life of about 8 hours with the dock battery. So that is pretty good considering that it is installing updates in the background as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think the conclusion here is that if you can find one of these Venue 11 Pro tablets that are one of the nicer models, there is an awful lot to like, at least on the one that I've got here in front of me, which, just if you're wondering, happens to be a variant of the i5 4210, so it's not quite the top tier, but it does have 4 gigs of RAM on board, which does certainly help. It's just pretty nice. It's smooth, it's snappy, it's running Windows 10. It seems like it would be a pretty nice experience, especially if you like this small travel form factor. Your battery life is going to be pretty decent with that Y series processor sipping power, and it is so easy to service. You don't even need a tool to get into it, you just need a tool to get the parts out of it. At any rate, if you enjoy this sort of content and would like to see more, I'm going to encourage you to do the big 4. Please like the video, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so the next time that I feature a tablet like this, you'll be the first to know about it. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.